Happy Wednesday to all the folks that can see us on all the platforms right now. Okay. And I think we are also recording on this room. Okay. It is Wednesday night, July 28th. It is 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we are ready to get drop-in hours started. I am convinced that it is a full moon today because my team is fantastic. Our partners are fantastic. Our speakers are fantastic. But when I tell you today has been a day, but I'm so glad that if you are here, you have made it. We're going to start letting folks in the room. If you are here, whether you are on YouTube or Facebook or, oh, I see my classmate from high school. Whether you are on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, we are so happy to have you join us today. We're going to give folks a few minutes to trinkle on land, fully acknowledge it is the end of a Wednesday at the end of July, at the hopefully end of a pandemic. We'll be talking about that on today. My name is Dr. Bobby Banks. I will be the person facilitating this discussion today. And if you are in this room, that means you're on the right flight going to the same destination for the next 60 or 90 minutes. We're so excited to have you here in the room. Please know that this is the place in the space. Dr. Vivian is here. Please know that this is the place and space that we have created for you to come and ask your questions. And so when we say, come in the room, drop on in, kick your feet up, ask your questions, we mean it. This is not the space where we're pushing or guilting or coercing people to do anything. We fully know we are very intelligent people. We can make informed decisions given the right information. So I have a wonderful team, as I said. It has to be a full moon. It has to be a full moon today, but we're going to make everything work. So thank you for coming. If you are not familiar with the concept of drop-in hours, I'll share that with you in a moment. And then we're going to have our interpreter come in and give you some updates. But drop-in hours is a place for us to come to meet experts. Like we're really bringing the experts to your room, to your living room, wherever you are. We ask the experts to do 4 simple things. Drop in the room, drop their credentials, because we know that everyone slept at a Holiday Inn last night, right? And then they can tell you everything about everything. To drop knowledge based on their credentials. If they've been studying viruses and medicine for 20, 30 years, they might know what they're talking about. And then we ask them to drop the mic. So if you're from the generation that I am with Randy Watson and Coming to America, that's what you do when you're done. And that's your call to action from our speakers. So we typically have these sessions in English and Spanish because we're a multilingual, multi-generational team. But unfortunately, Zoom is not cooperating on today. So I'm going to have the Spanish interpreter come in and explain what's going to happen for this session. Then I'll come in, repeat in English, and then we'll talk about who's dropping in tonight. If I can get a thumbs up from folks with your reaction tabs, that we're all okay, we good? Good.
Thank you very much, Dr. Banks. So, muy buenas noches. Les saluda Murtado. Yo soy el intérprete para esta noche, pero lastimosamente, a pesar de que teníamos todo preparado para poder realizar interpretación simultánea durante este evento hoy no se pudo. La idea que tiene la doctora Banks es hacer ponerle subtítulos o ponerle audio por encima a esta sesión para que quede disponible en español más adelante. So, sadly, we were unable to make the simultaneous interpretation work, but there will be an option perhaps in the future. I don't exactly know when, Dr. Banks, but my understanding is to maybe put subtitles or maybe voice off or some kind of dubbing for the future so that this meeting is available for those Spanish speaking folks. So thank you very much.
Thank you. When I tell you folks are working behind the scenes with plan Bs and pan Cs, this is what we're going to have to do, and we'll keep the party rolling. So thank you for sharing that both in Spanish and in English. I told you what my name is. I did not tell you who I am. And then I'll start the formal process of drop-in hours. My name is Dr. Bobby Banks. I have been trained in public health for decades, and I have an amazing and brilliant team that has worked with me on this project that last March we knew when a couple thousand people had started, the data around death or mortality started to get into the thousands, we were like, we need to move. We need to think of creative way to engage with people. And so given the work that we have done for decades, if we've said collectively, it's probably centuries around health equity, we were like, we can come up with a message that really resonates with everyday people. And that became Not a Host. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. But I want to celebrate. Normally it's just a couple of us in the room, but we have a very special friend joining us today who's going to join in and facilitate discussion and ask some questions. So I do want to say what's up to Brian Dawson. You want to say hey to folks right quick or real quick?
Hey, I'm doing double duty, Dr. B. I'm on the radio. Here, so I'm excited.
And I was told you stay on your roller skates. I see that now. I thought I multitask, but clearly I do not. So I can't see the slides right now, but if you want to advance to the next slide, I'll get everyone acclimated to the room. This is your space. Our experts are going to come in and tell us who they are, what they do. I have a couple of questions, just like at the end of this session, we're going to ask you, what else do you need to know? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Not a Host campaign, how we got to this place, and then we'll jump into our experts. How do folks feel about that? I'm very interactive, if y'all can't tell. It's 6 o'clock on Wednesday. Okay. So Not a Host, I invite you, if you're not already on the website, go to www.notahost.com to learn more about the background of this campaign. But please just know that we've been working on this for the last almost year and a half, really trying to develop a multimedia campaign where folks can come and learn things in different ways. For example, your immune system is like Muhammad Ali. It is designed to fight all day long, all night long, and helping people understand when viruses try to jump into you or they are in the air, your immune system is in fight mode. And so helping people understand that, because even if you woke up today, there are headlines every single day with new information. So we've been updating information and sending it out to people, and also have a print campaign we're doing with that. But you are here for the most important part, and that is the space that we engage virtually with folks. And so this is drop-in hours. We could advance to the next slide. Today, we have, I swear it's a full moon. Yeah. We have all this fancy animation for y'all today, and just, yeah. It's just, it's a Wednesday in July. Today, we have two experts who I respect, who I admire, who are going to share some information. And we invited Brian in. We went out to lunch yesterday, and everyday people still, we still have questions. So brought Brian in to really talk about and reinforce, like, it's summertime. What are we doing out here to stay well, right? What can we do and what can't we do? So today, I'm excited to have Dr. Bobby Burches and Dr. Viviana Martinez-Bianchi. Bad people in their respective industries and their respective work. And they're people I respect because they don't just sit in the four walls of a hospital. You will see them out in the community just as much as you see them working with patients. I've been on meetings with Dr. Viviani several times, and she's the person that asks tough questions. Dr. Burches, I will tell our history afterwards, but this is a bad sister and a bad brother, y'all. But I would, just in alphabetical order, tell the people who you are. You've already dropped in, please, and don't be humble, because folks need to know you know your stuff. So drop your credentials for us, please, Dr. Burches.
First, hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Bobby Burches. I want to first thank my good friend, Dr. Bobby Banks, for inviting me on this platform. This is a huge honor for me. I've known her for over 20 years at this point, and she's wonderful. Everything that she's doing here to promote literacy and understanding about the COVID pandemic is hugely important and a huge service to the community. So with all that being out of the way, I'm going to talk about my credentials, but I don't want to lead with them because I think it's very important for us to know who you're talking to first. So I'll tell you, I am a proud HBCU alumnus. I attended Southern University and A&M College in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Go Jaguars. I graduated from there with a Bachelor's of Science in Chemistry I then went to medical school at the Kansas City University of Medicine and Biosciences, where I got my medical degree. Then I did my residency in the Department of Anesthesiology and Critical Care Medicine at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. I am a board certified anesthesiologist. I have been on faculty at the Johns Hopkins Hospital, and I've also worked in private practice, and I currently run my own business as an independent anesthesiologist and health advocate.
So I threw up my Rattler Pride sign as you were talking, but it's all HBCU. And as my mama would say, you went and got your lesson. So you done some good training in medicine. And your band is almost as good as our band. We'll give you your kudos. It's all good.
Well, I'll see this year. You know there's a game, right? You gonna be there?
No, sir, I will not. We'll talk about that later.
Right.
I will be there my home. Yeah.
Come on.
That's what I'll be doing. Okay. So thank you for dropping credentials. That's the last formality you're getting up from us on tonight.
There we go.
All right, Dr. Viviana Martinez-Bianchi. Is it Bianchi or Bianchi? Because I speak Spanish and Portuguese, I'll mess it up.
It's Bianchi because it's actually the second part of my last name is Italian.
Bianchi.
I acquired the Bianchi by marriage to marrying an Italian American from Chicago. So I am Dr. Viviana Martinez-Bianchi. I am a family doctor, an immigrant, a mom, community activist, somebody who is passionate about health inequities. I am Director for Health Equity in the Department of Family Medicine and Community Health at Duke. And I've also been working both globally with the World Health Organization. I represent the World Organization of Family Doctors to the World Health Organization. And as an immigrant, ever since I moved to the US 30 years ago to pursue my training in family medicine, I've been taking care of immigrant families and the more diverse populations, often in Chicago, in Iowa, and now in North Carolina. And it's such a pleasure to be here. I also wanted to say I met Brian Dawson on Saturday when he was DJing for a great event that we did. I don't know if he recognizes me. I was wearing a mask most of the time when we took our selfies.
You was dancing. I remember you.
You were dancing. That's right.
Way more rhythm than I got. Yes. Yes. Wow. Fantastic.
So I love this, right? So when I say these are people out in the community doing the work, and I don't mean the work, again, this is not the persuasion space, but I mean the work of educating the community and making sure folks have the right information and making sure they have access to the things that they need, right? Including vaccines, including testing, including tracing. So when I say we brought out the guns on today, we did. So this is what I want to know. Let's start off light, because one of the things that some folks were asking as a question in the last session was just like, how do we maintain, like, how do we not ride the wave of anxiety in the midst of this pandemic? It's summertime. Summertime means we're supposed to be outside playing. Summertime means we're supposed to be out if you have the beach body, you live in your hot whatever summer. But I know that Brian is out here at least getting the fitness game in, at least at minimum. As I said, Brian is out here on his roller skates. Like, what part of our campaign for the summer is called Keep It Right. So like, let's get some mental and physical and emotional wellness. We got to get through this pandemic. So Brian, tell us what do you do for fun in the summertime?
Well, as I was telling you, Dr. Bobby, I'm all over the place.
No, not you, Brian. What?
Well, I mean, I was telling you, like, I really picked up doing a lot of community stuff during the pandemic last year. So I went straight to the front lines trying to do stuff for the essential workers who had to continue doing what they were doing. Mm-hmm. My son plays basketball, so I spent a lot of time, I know you don't want to hear this, in gyms with him. He's going through his AAU basketball high school year. So we've been doing a lot of that. Other than that, I'm DJing. Dr. Vivian can tell you, I'm a pretty good DJ. I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I love getting out there in the community. So I'm outside, embarrassingly enough to say, and I need to become a little more focused and a little bit more aware of what's going on, because I want to end by saying, being on the front lines, I'm speaking to a lot of people who are very confused about getting this vaccine. And I'm, as staunch a supporter as I am of the vaccine, I'm running out of ways to communicate with them. So I'm hoping to learn from you guys what to say, what not to say. And I woke up this morning looking at CNN, trying to really get a grasp in terms of what's going on right now. So I'm just excited to be here.
Good luck with trying to grasp all that information. And I respect that you said that, because look, folks are going to be out there. So the important thing is to do it safely, right? So there's no judgment. You know, I'm scary, so I'll be here, but much respect to you, like much respect to you. Folks, after this, we'll jump into the questions, but you have full access to the chat if you have questions. I know 2 of the things on CNN, I know you saw it. CDC was like, throw your mask back on. And then they were like, again, Delta variant. So we got those questions. But if there are other questions you have, like Brian's on the front lines, he's talking to people all the time. We're not everywhere. So you're here. Let us know what questions you have. If you can't stay the whole time, that's fine. This will be on the Facebook, the LinkedIn, like this will be archived so you can get the answers you want. But while you are here, if you have questions, it does not get better than these folks. It does not get better than the folks in the room. So before we jump into questions really quickly, Dr. Bobby, Dr. Viviano, what are y'all doing this summer? Because I have some really brave friends who are on plane, train, and automobiles, and they're like quadruple masked up. I can't. I'm not there. I'm not there yet.
I'm being careful. And when I'm saying careful is I am fully vaccinated. My family is fully vaccinated. But I'm responsible for making sure that my patients don't get sick from me. I am responsible for making sure that my mom, even though she's vaccinated, doesn't get sick. And I feel very responsible for everybody around me. And so when I'm going into a big, a place that is packed, you will see me with a mask, right? Regardless, even if I am fully vaccinated, because I don't know, when I come to work, when I go to other places, I don't know who may not be vaccinated near me. And it's about the transmission. This Delta variant that we are talking about can be transmitted faster. We are seeing more concentration of virus in the nose, so it's easy to get it fast. So I don't want to get it to be passing it around to other people who may not be vaccinated and therefore don't have the ability to fight it. Because it is about fighting the virus.
You're scary like me. Well, yeah. I shouldn't call it scary. I just, on a normal day, I don't do germs. And to know that, and hopefully you can we'll explain more about the Delta variant and everything you're saying and why. I was on a podcast with 2 friends from Newport News a couple of weeks ago, and just the communication, I don't think it was clear. And I think this goes back to what you were saying, Brian, that folks thought when they got the vaccine, it was like, oh, like, nothing will ever happen to me. And that was never the case. I think the messaging, I see you guys, just the messaging was not right. So what it does guarantee, and the data has shown us this, is that your likelihood of death or serious illness is like exponentially low. Yeah, the data shows that clearly. So Bobby, I saw you nodding with her. Are you the masked? Are you like Bobby? Who are you out here living your best life?
I think that, I echo Dr. Viviana tremendously. So I personally think that, as physicians, we have a responsibility not only to ourselves, but to our patients. So I have to be cognizant of making sure that I'm setting both an example for me and not, unbeknownst to me, giving something to someone who I may contact who may be immunocompromised. I deal with patients' airways on a daily basis. So, I could easily transmit something to someone, or I could be transmitted too. So I have to be really cognizant about making sure that I mask up when appropriate. Of course, I've been vaccinated since December, so that goes without saying, but I'm fairly cautious at this point about being in large groups. I spend a lot of time outdoors. I am a huge health advocate in terms of making sure that I work out and making sure that I have some type of an outlet that gives me a way to be able to, blow off some steam, or to not have to compartmentalize as much some of the things that we've seen during the pandemic. I've had to intubate patients who were COVID positive, people who have died in the ICU, working in the ICU during that time. So you have to kind of develop ways to cope with dealing with the stresses of those experiences. So I definitely echo Dr. Viviana in that I'm being more cautious, specifically now that we have this Delta variant that is more highly infective and more virulent to people. I don't want to give it to somebody who's not vaccinated, even though for me, the risk of a serious illness and death is lower. I still have to set a positive example for my patients and for the community, because I mean, most people are looking at physicians for the answers, even though, to be quite honest, this is a data-driven bouncing ball. I think a lot of people are really frustrated with all of the differences in the mandates and all of the constant changes and shifting and pivoting that's happening. But what I don't think that the larger population understands is that these large public health organizations are charged with using data points to drive what they're telling people to do. So sure, people are used to linear thinking that, okay, they told me I could take my mask off. No. That was yesterday. Today, 1,000 more people got COVID. So guess what we have to do? We have to shift our thinking to be more flexible, to understand that we're using real-time information to make the absolute best choices about what we're going to do globally for everyone. So I went overboard, but that's what
that's good. And one of the things I said, so this is the third session, right? And one of the things I said in the second session was like, we aren't plants. Like we aren't grounded or rooted in one place. We are moving human beings who are vaccinated, unvaccinated, masked, unmasked, traveling, going here, going there. And I said, those complexities limit the extent to which we can just go, as you said, a straight relationship that we're like, oh, this causes this, because there are people moving everywhere and there's so many variables. Two things I want to talk about. And Brian, I don't know how long we have you. And I know you're doing double duty, but I would love to hear from all of you. And I'll be honest with you, Bobby, part of my decision in getting, sorry, let me go back. If you guys don't mind my storytelling for about 30 seconds. I've known Bobby Burches because we were the BBs in a summer medical program in 2001 in Chicago, Illinois. That's when I had delusions of going to medical school. So I've known Bobby from college all the way through his medical training. He was brilliant when I met him, but to know that he's doing this work now is amazing. So I just had to throw that in there. The BBs. But I think, as you said, the data and the science, it can be information overload, even for someone who does this all the time, right? Like I woke up, my friend texted me and was like, the Delta variant, and I was like, I'm not reading a paper today. Can't do it. Won't do it. My behavior is not going to change anyway. But what we do know is that part of people-informed decision-making, whatever that looks like for them, includes so much. And for me, I needed to see people who looked like me. Number one, speaking truth. Number two, doing the work. Like I just said, I've seen Dr. Viviana, street, highway, like everywhere, right? So they speak truth, they do the work, they know the science, right? And then they did it. And so, Bobby, you said you got it in December. I still waited. But I saw you do it and I still waited. I would love to hear from y'all, and then we'll get into other folks' questions. What was part of your decision making? Because some folks are just like, oh, I'm gonna go now. And for me, I was like, nope, I'll wait. So tell me more about your decision making. Was it seeing other people? Was it looking at the data? Was it knowing that you have a job where you interact with people? I would love to hear from you
first, or Dr. Viviana.
Whoever wants to, because I know we got Brian for about 10 seconds.
I mean, well, I'll jump in there real fast. So my decision on whether or not I chose to get the vaccine was based largely in part on logic and on risk versus benefit. So I think that the audience members have to kind of understand how we make decisions in medicine. In medicine, specifically in what I do as an anesthesiologist, I am always weighing risks versus benefits. How is the risk higher or is the benefit higher? Okay. You know what I mean? Because you can walk out of your house and get hit by a bus, but is the risk really high? So for me and what I do occupationally, I am constantly intubating people. I'm constantly dealing with people who have respiratory problems. And so the risk of me contracting this, despite appropriate PPE, despite wearing an N95 mask, is exponentially higher than a normal person out in the community. So I have to be concerned about giving this to somebody. And I also have to be concerned about getting it from somebody, because during the pandemic, I spent a lot of time working in ICUs, intubating patients who were positive in ICUs and in emergency rooms. So the benefit or the potential benefit of having some level of immunity such that I would not become, super ill or, need to be hospitalized my own self was much greater than the benefit. Was much greater than the risk of me getting this disease and becoming very sick. So that was one part of it. And I don't want to be remiss to the people in the audience to not understand there is an emotional component to making this decision. But I think that it's very important to get the information first, right? So before I got this vaccine, I need for people to understand this. And I'm going to give the floor to Dr. Vivian, because I can talk forever. Very, very important for people to understand that this has been a very transparent process by which this vaccine has been developed, and the data that people keep toting is publicly available. This is not data that you just happen to get off a meme from Facebook. You can find the clinical information used to push this drug through the FDA for emergency use online. This is not shrouded in secrecy. So I took a look at the data. I looked at the New England Journal article. I looked at the data from the Pfizer website. I looked at the data that's on the CDC website. I looked at the data that's on the World Health Organization's website. And I made a choice based on data and based on risk and based on the benefit to me, potentially, given what I do and how I have to interact with people.
I got a follow-up question to that. When I know truth is being spoken, when heads are nodding, right? And so as you were talking, like Dr. Viviana was like, risk benefit. Like, what do you want to add though? Because we do want to get the full perspective. So what do you want to add, Dr. Viviana?
So two things drove me. I was number 15 at Duke University, one of the first health workers to get the shot. And I communicate with the rest of the world. I saw a significant burden of family doctors, people who were out in the community doing primary care, getting sick and dying, because there was a lack of recognition of how important the community exposure was. That was one thing about knowing how easy it was getting transmitted in the community, not just in the intensive care unit, not just in the emergency room. So as a family doctor taking care of people, of course I wore my N95 seeing patients, etc. But I was thinking about the community exposure. That was one thing, and knowing how many of my colleagues had died around the world. Mm-hmm. I also wanted to protect my husband. I am married to somebody who, because of his he has multiple sclerosis, and he is on immune modulators, on medicines that decrease his immunity so that his own body doesn't react against his brain. So if I were to get sick and pass it on to him, it could be lethal to him because he wouldn't have the ability to fight this vaccine. And then my mom is 81 years old, and I did not see my mom for a whole year because of the risk of my exposure to patients. I wanted to be vaccinated to be able to see her and to be able to hug my mom. Mm-hmm. And those were big drivers of that. And then my son was in college. He was about to come over for the holidays. I wanted to be able to be protected, to protect him as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you added that emotional piece, Bobby. I think everybody's frustrated and tired right now. Mm-hmm. I had a moment last week. I was like, I'm moving out of the country, right?
It's not better anywhere else.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. But that's real, right? That there's urgency. And we know that some people will never get vaccinated. I say this on every session. Some folks will never get vaccinated. It really is about now thinking about risk reduction and helping them to still think through the best decision. Because, I mean, you're going to master 2028. That's a personal decision. But I think that the important piece is that give people some grace and some compassion.
Yes.
This thing came like whoosh. We knew in March, and I'm sure both of you guys knew in March, this is coming for our communities without question. Because on a regular day, systems and structures are already working against our health. Yes. And if this virus is attacking a weaker body and a weaker immune system because you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, you might have other chronic diseases, this is not going to fare well. And so I think all of us slid into, my background is data and education, like what can we do? It sounds like Dr. Viviana, you were looking at other clinicians or other people who were out in the community and you saw it was not faring well for them.
I also I'm sorry, Bobby. I also wanted to be a role model for my comunidad Latina. A lot of people didn't have enough information in the Latino community. I wanted to show that soy Latina y me vacuno. I am a Latina and I am getting the vaccine. I trust, I'm not gonna, I don't want to repeat what Dr. Bobby already said. I had read all of the information. My community of clinicians that have been involved in this were just desperate to get that vaccine. And but I also wanted to make sure that mi comunidad Latina knew that this was a vaccine that we could trust.
Okay. I have my team doing their job. It's 6:30. It's check-in time. So I give freedom to the audience. I'm sorry, the folks on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn, but for those who are in the room, we can continue with questions and field questions from you or from the other sessions, or we can let the speakers kind of go more into the work that they do. So it's a democracy. If you look at the reactions button at the bottom of your stream, there's probably a button that says like mute, stop video, go eat popcorn, whatever, I don't know. But reactions is at the bottom right. So Dr. Viviana, it's been a long day. Please let me laugh. So so it's either we can continue with the questions because we have them for another 60 minutes max. Or we can let them go more formally into some of the things that they have done, not only in COVID, but with their work. So if you want to go with asking questions in real time, hit your thumbs up on the reaction tab. That always happens. I don't know why I asked. They're just like, can we get their telephone numbers? Where do they live? Okay, so we'll continue. This is what I would love to hear and what I try to explain to people, right? If you choose not to get vaccinated, what is out here, right? So my visual for me is like, what would people be juggling? So if you choose not to get vaccinated, and we know the Delta variant is here, one of the things that the last two experts talked about last month were NPIs, non-pharmaceutical interventions. Okay, yeah. So other ways that did not involve medicines that people could engage with for immunity or immune boosting, but help paint a picture, because you kind of painted a picture for yourselves. If you're vaccinated, you don't want to have the virus transmitted to you or transmitted to someone else. You kind of knew what was juggling out there. I think for some people, present company included, as all of these headlines were coming, it's just like, what am I juggling now? So at this point in time, if folks are not vaccinated or they choose that they will not get vaccinated, help paint a picture of what they are juggling, whether it's in their home or out in the world, if that makes sense. I'm a visual person, so I'm thinking juggling.
Who you want to go first?
Whomever. Actually, since Delta variant is in the news and folks have blown up my telephone, although I told them to come to drop-in hours 2 months ago. Since that's the most, I mean, we know it's more transmissible. Is it more fatal? Like, help people understand that or whatever else. I'm not a clinician. I'm not a physician. Like, y'all do this all the time.
So, I mean, I guess to your first question, what potentially could lay ahead if you decided not to become vaccinated?
Yeah.
So I want to make it clear that, nobody knows or has a crystal ball of where this is going. Any physician who gets on here or who gets on any platform and tells you that they have all of the answers is lying to you. We don't have all of the answers. There are basic fundamental things that we understand about the way viruses work and about the way immunology works. And then there are other things that are factors like human behavior. Will you actually do it? All of the things that, Dr. Viviana could attest to working in primary care. You give someone a medication. You don't know if they're going to take the medication or not. They might take it sometimes, so the blood pressure may be a little lower next time. But, all of that to say that if despite getting all of the information, the general population or those who are unvaccinated continue to not be vaccinated, my larger concern is that it's important that we know that everything that everyone does will affect everyone, right? So
can you say that again?
Everything that everyone does will affect everyone. So, from a basic immunologic standpoint, viruses are very smart microbes. They are designed to infect people in the most efficient way possible. as the variants continue to change. So for those people who don't know what variants are, so virus starts out one way, right? It infects your body. This virus has a spike protein. It spikes into one of your cells. It gets into your cells. It takes over the machinery in your cell and it replicates, and then you get sick, right? So it starts out one way, but it's a really smart virus. You know, it continues to change and become more efficient and more efficient. I'm not sure.
I was like, is it my Zoom? It's still a full moon.
It continues to become more and more efficient. Hence the reason why we started off with one COVID-19 virus. Now we have a bunch of different variants. Now the Delta variant is more pervasive. Thankfully, the vaccines that are currently out have some level of efficacy for the Delta variant. But my worry and my larger concern is that as you have more and more people who decide not to become vaccinated, the virus will continue to change, and the efficacy of the vaccines that we currently have may become less and less efficacious to the changes that happen, and we may be back at square one. So that is one thing that could potentially happen outside of the morbidity and the mortality that you could experience, if you aren't vaccinated. So the larger concern for those who are not vaccinated is that it will indeed eventually affect those people who are vaccinated. From what I hear and from what I've read. So that's my thoughts on it.
Okay. So let me repeat this back like a 6-year-old. Good luck. So, well, I've said, even from my biology, immunology, microbiology classes back at the illustrious Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, viruses' jobs are to find a host. To continue to keep replicating or multiplying itself, and they mutate. Like, that is what they do. They have done that way before we were on this planet.
Yes.
They will do that way after we leave this planet. This is what they do. And I firmly believe, because I'm clumsy, I'm not going to outsmart a virus that can be on a doorknob, an ink pen, somebody like, I think there are protective ways to do that. So you're saying what I thought. I'm glad I was right. They're trying to multiply, they mutate. And it sounds like what you're saying is the vaccine was developed, and I'm sure people have questions around that too. That was for the original virus that popped up here in the US. And it's called the Alpha. They started giving the virus now have Greek letters or Greek names. Is that correct? Tell me no, if not, I'm just trying.
Alpha was the first variant. We started with the SARS-CoV-2, and then we started to see variants. So the WHO, we started calling it the India variant, or the Brazil variant, or the UK variant, and then there was another variant from India. So then the WHO started giving them the alphabet, the Greek alphabet names, so that we have the alpha, the beta, so now what we are seeing as the Delta is moving across. Lambda was seen in Peru, and we have about 300, 400 identified cases. And so far, it's not the variant that we worry the most about. It's the Delta variant, the one that we're worried. Okay. When the variants occur, we are always worried. Are the vaccines, the current vaccines we have, still able to control them? And it appears that they are, because we're still seeing that people who are vaccinated are not really getting that sick to come into the hospital or be admitted. So we're seeing that the vaccine is still working, works against that spike, especially the messenger RNA vaccines that we're using are okay so far. Why we're worried and why we don't like when the virus starts mutating, is it going to start mutating and creating something different from that little spike that the vaccine works against? And then we're like, oh, having to develop something new.
This is where my friends have to say, like, Bobby, just live free. And I'm like, ah! And this is where you say you don't have a crystal ball right now. So the data is showing us the first variant, the vaccine worked. The second variant, the vaccine worked. No. The third variant, the vaccine worked. And you just said there's another variant with a couple hundred people that just came up. And so and this is what I think you talked about, like, this is a data-driven pandemic, like where, yeah, that's that to me is like, okay. Can you explain to people who think that their understanding is that the vaccine is new? Can you explain what that means, or if that's accurate, or in what ways it is new? Or not?
So we had to design a vaccine for a new variant of a coronavirus. We have had coronaviruses for years and years and years. The problem with this SARS-CoV-2, the one that causes COVID-19, is that it became aggressive, fast, able to cause things in the body that earlier coronaviruses were not doing. You know, the ones that give real regular colds in the winter, those just gave us a cold. This one was a nasty one, and we had to create a vaccine. Now, the data on how to produce a vaccine is decades long. It was not like something new that somebody came out. No, it's been decades long that has been used for many different things, including treatment of cancer, treatment of autoimmune disorders. So it is a technique that has been utilized before, and it was smartly utilized to try to destroy the SARS-CoV, the virus that causes coronavirus 19.
Okay.
Absolutely. So, to add to Dr. Viviana's, what she just said, I think it's just important for the general public to know that a proven technique was applied to a current problem. mRNA vaccines started in the early 90s. The technology used to make the current vaccine that we're taking was developed over many years. What I think the general population finds untrusting is that, y'all just came up with this. No. The back work, the foreground for this was already set. Okay. And it just so happened that we benefited from the time of the hundreds of scientists who spent their entire careers developing the technology. And some really smart person at Pfizer or Moderna decided, gee, I'm going to use something that people already discovered and see if we can apply it to this problem. And it worked. Based on the data, it worked. So when folks say they just magically came up with it, no. We didn't just magically come up with it. We were 20 years in the making, and that technology had been used for other things. And it just so happened that we were blessed enough to be at the perfect time in history to be able to utilize what had already been discovered.
Okay. That's headlines and media too. I mean, you have to watch where you get your information, like really, really watch where you get your information. For those who don't know, I've given an example about side effects because people have questions. You see a headline, oh my God, like 5 people got a heart attack. And it's like thousands of people get heart attacks because we're an unhealthy country. But at any rate, you talked about public available information, which includes the database that houses all of the side effects, right? And I'll let you share what that is. But for those of you who have come to drop-in hours previously or have heard me on other webinars, I talked about this bad physician that I know that made it very clearly. I know so many now, like, I feel like I need to put a collage of photos up of you guys like heroes. But the example I gave around side effects and calling yourself to a higher level of thinking when you see these headlines, because just like viruses are going to virus, media is going to media. They want you to click those headlines. And it may be factual information or it might be a clickbait. But what Dr. Burches told me, if you remember the Bell's palsy example, this was the man who broke it down for me. So there was a headline, I think last winter or earlier this year, like, 10 people got Bell's palsy. And then folks are like, oh no, I can't do Bell's palsy. And he did a quick video on Facebook and I was just like, genius. And he said, look, the number of people who got Bell's palsy in this clinical trial, before it even came to you, he was like, it was 1 out of 10,000. I think that was the number, Bobby, whatever. It was like,
I think if I remember correctly, it
was
4
people. It was like 4 people out of 40,000. That's not to dismiss that it happened. It's just giving you a number, right? And so it was 1 out of 10,000. And then he gave that Bobby look and he said, I think he might've blinked and said, now you got to just think about on a regular day, outside of a pandemic, exclusive of everything that's going on this planet right now, your likelihood of getting Bell's palsy is what, Dr. Burches?
It's around 1 in 10,000.
It's around the same thing. And so I said, this is what we need folks to understand before they start seeing these headlines. And it's like, like really call yourself to a higher level of thinking and say, okay, this is something to think about, possibly be concerned about, but let me see what this looks like on a normal day. So what are you hearing and what are you seeing in terms of people's fears about side effects? Because they're real, right?
They are.
And what have you seen and what have you heard from folks? I know that Bell's palsy raised folks' awareness. I'm trying to think of some others that I've seen recently. Heart attack came up, and I'm just like, heart attacks, they happen quite prevalent.
A couple of other, I think blood clots was a
blood clots.
Yeah.
Was it? Talk about those. Do you, and I'm not asking you to pull all the data, that's not the job today, but what have you seen? What have you heard? And what should people think about if they are concerned with side effects?
So, to speak to side effects and all of these things, I think a couple of things, right? So I think that, unfortunately, I think there's a huge mistrust in the community. And I think that social media and the politicalization of this entire pandemic of the vaccine from the previous administration has played a huge role in developing and exploiting the mistrust that has gone on within the general population. And we all know that Black and brown people have a lot of reasons to be distrusting of the healthcare system, right? So I think, unfortunately, what you find is you have a pervasive amount of misinformation that has been happening online, combined with some real side effects that have come up in the media, whether it be via clickbait or otherwise, but people aren't able to synthesize the information enough to understand the likelihood of these things happening to them. Again, like you said, not negating the fact that there are risks with everything that we do, and there are potentially risks in terms of side effects from getting the vaccine. One thing that has stood out for me, and her name is Dr. Jen Caudle. She did a really wonderful video on explaining there was a large sector of people who are using the vaccine adverse reaction database as a means to explain why they won't get the vaccine. And for the people in the audience who don't understand what the vaccine adverse reaction database is, it is a all-catch repository where any person who got the vaccine, whether you be a normal person from a general person in the population, a physician, a nurse, anybody who's not even in healthcare, whether you be whoever you are, you can register on the website and tell the people what you thought happened to you after you had the vaccine. What people fail to understand when they read this information is that it is a repository of information that has to be followed up. These reactions may not be reactions. This information is firsthand causation, or like they haven't determined whether or not the COVID vaccine actually caused any of these problems with these people. And that's not to say that it didn't, but I think that to use that information as a means to determine whether or not you will get the vaccine is pretty not the best way to use the information. You need to understand that this is, anybody can go on here for any reason and report anything, and it will be public to everyone. So I wanted to make sure that I said that on here because that's a really important thing that I've seen online propagated as reasons why people are saying, oh, all these people are having these reactions. Well, we don't know based on the data if that information is indeed causation. Mm-hmm. Did it come before or after the vaccine, or was the vaccine even a variable? Mm-hmm. So
I think you raised some important things, and there are questions going off in the chat, on the Facebook, on the radio, on my front door, everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let these questions go. But can you please, number one, and then I want to pass it to Dr. Viviana if she wants to add anything. Can you, because I think information is important, people need it. Can you name that place again so that people can go and see the side effects? And then I'm going to say, comma, I know it's called VAERS, like that's the acronym.
VAERS.
And if anyone on my team can put the link in the chat, if folks want to look at that
Please put the
information.
link in the chat.
Yeah.
Dr. Viviana will probably know this a little more than me.
Vaccine adverse reaction, epidemiologic surveillance or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I just know that it really is a catchment where any person who received the vaccine, whether they thought their throat was closing or they thought they got a rash, they can go in there and say they got it.
Mm-hmm. Which is, and that's why I want to say comma, which is important.
Which is important.
Comma.
Yes.
You said, and this is what we learn in epi, right? Causation, that one thing is actually linked to something else, and that one thing came before the other, right? Yes. And so if I had a rough day and I had to drive like I did 2 hours to go get my vaccine and it was hot and my AC wasn't working and my children were getting on my nerves, and I take my blood pressure and it's 200 over 175.
So it was the vaccine.
But it might be the vaccine, or it might be I just had a really stressful day. And so this is what scientists need to sift through when you have public. Think about, I mean, I hate to draw this parallel, but I can't think of a better one. Just like everyone has a voice on social media, like anybody could add a side effect to their, correct? Or is that incorrect?
They can.
Okay. So think about that. I had a friend at the very beginning of the pandemic. This is not my area of expertise. I play with data all day long, but I went in VAERS myself and I looked through the data and I was like, whoever sent you this, and I sent her a screenshot because it's her decision to make. And I said, this wouldn't startle me because I'm allergic to everything. And I live in North Carolina. I'll break out into hives on a regular day. I don't know if it's the vaccine or because it's fall pollen season now. Dr. Viviana, I want to pass to you to talk about side effects and then, oh my God. What
I wanted to make sure is that and going through what Dr. Bobby Burches was talking about, the risk and benefits. What we know is that if we get sick with the coronavirus, people admitted to the hospital, we are seeing 20 to 40% of them get severe blood clots. We are seeing, as I am doing vaccination campaigns, vaccination events, I see people who survived coronavirus a year ago who are coming in to get a vaccine now, and they're missing a foot, and that foot because of a blood clot that obstructed the blood flow to their foot, and that was the reason for that blood clot was the coronavirus. So we are worried so much. You know, when the Johnson & Johnson got stopped was because there were 1 in 1 million, so 6 cases out of 6 million vaccines that had a rare form of a blood clot in the sinus venous in the brain. In my career as a family doctor, I have seen 3 women that got those from birth control pills, right? So we have to remember that these are not things that we've never seen before. Another case was Guillain-Barré syndrome. Last week or 2 weeks ago, there was a report of a few people that have gotten something called Guillain-Barré, where you suddenly become weaker, you may have trouble walking after receiving the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. I, as a trainee in medicine, took care of multiple people with Guillain-Barré syndrome in the hospital from viral illnesses, from the flu, as an effect of the flu shot. So again, and from having the flu, right? So our bodies are going to do some unusual things when exposed to things. And right now we are making a decision. Do we want the higher risk of illness from the coronavirus, or do we want the lower risk of side effects from the vaccine? The side effects of getting sick from coronavirus right now are very, very high. The potential of being in the hospital is still higher than any of the side effects that the vaccine can give us. And that's what needs to inform where we are with this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Back to, and we're gonna pass the mic to Brian Dawson, who I saw your thing in the chat, but I just want to anchor in. We have the previous drop-in hours on YouTube and Facebook, but what you just anchored on, Dr. Viviana, for our very first drop-in hours, we had the widow of the whistleblower for the Tuskegee syphilis study. That, as you said, Bobby, everybody in the Black and brown community is very, I would venture to say the overwhelming majority don't know about the Tuskegee syphilis study. But what she said, Dr. Viviana, her husband, Dr. Bill Jenkins, who was a Gullah Geechee brother from South Carolina. He's a son of the Carolinas. She said if he was here, he would say probability, right? He's a data person. The probability of harm from coronavirus versus the probability of harm. I see you doing your hands. She said it's a no-brainer, like it's a no-brainer, but we still need to let people navigate through their informed decision-making. But that's what she said Bill would say. The probabilities are, it's a no-brainer. And that's what you just reminded me of from the very first one. Brian Dawson, give us a question. Where's it from? The radio, from you, from the community, from the...
Well, I had a question, but they answered it. The panel's excellent. I think I'm gonna do what I've been doing is just keep listening. But I do want to add, so I had an unscientific approach as to whether to take the vaccine or not. And to me, it came down to, my guilty pleasure of, well, I don't want to call it pleasure, but I got caught into the 24-hour news cycle of the previous administration. So through that, I got into the COVID situation kind of early. So I was a little up on it, and then being in the entertainment business and being severely affected by it and seeing that coming down the pipe, I started to do a lot of research. So my thought was if, and of course, it's funny you spoke about the Tuskegee situation. I thought a lot of things got leaked in the media early to put some type of distrust in this from the beginning from Black and brown folks. So one of the things I keep running into is people thinking that they're trying to target us individually. So my unscientific approach was to try to figure out how would they find me individually, because I went to Burlington somewhere early in the process to get the shot. And I know they didn't know that I was an African-American male showing up by the way they was doing it. So what I like about what you guys are doing is you guys are speaking from an approach that a novice can follow, because I equate it a lot to sports. So a lot of times sports don't get new participants because they talk from such a high level about the subject matter. And if you stay on the beginning, and a person can understand. So I guess my question would be, do we have any information on how they're administering these doses of vaccine? How random it is? Like, is it like a special vaccine for Black people, for white folks? Or, because that's what I think seems to be the biggest issue with most people. They feel like they're trying to be targeted for some reason.
I heard that too. Like when they came out, I was like, hey y'all, and Black people are like, you don't show up and hey y'all for anything else. Like, well, wait a minute. And then I think folks were confused by, why is J&J here and Pfizer here and Moderna here? What's going on? So I think that that's a valid question. I think folks wanted to know, like, why were some sent some places and not others, and why y'all knocking on our door now?
I can answer some of that, because I've been working really hard with the historically marginalized populations team with the Department of Health and Human Services. And it took a bunch of very passionate people that got together to say, this is not acceptable. We cannot allow what has happened to our communities to continue to happen with something as lethal as this virus. Now, do I see mistrust? Of course. The health system wasn't there providing universal access to health care for other conditions, for heart disease, unless you had insurance, or whether state insurance or paid insurance, you couldn't get in, right? But many of us got together with state leaders, within leaders of our own health system, and said, this is not acceptable. This is a viral illness that's spreading rampantly among our communities. Why? Because our members of our communities are essential workers. They have to go to work because often they live, besides bringing it home, they live in multi-generational houses, right? Grandma takes care of my child so I can go to work. Mm-hmm. And so we started seeing such a significant spread both in the African American and the Latino community, which called the attention of many leaders within our North Carolina system of government to say, this is it. We cannot allow this to happen. We started listening and trying to figure out what would be the best approach. First was for testing, then for wraparound services. People were not wanting to get tested because then you had to, if you're positive, you have to stay off from work for 2 weeks. So how do you do that? So there was a grant to try to support people to be able to be at home. You get your test, you get your food so that you you're able to hunker in. I mean, we did a lot of different things. And then when the vaccine came up, we knew we were riding on a wave of mistrust. And it is normal, it's natural, it's expected when our communities haven't received the care that they had deserved all of these years. So that's where we started talking about, instead of underrepresented minorities, instead of minorities, etc., we started talking about historically marginalized populations. All of our populations were looking in, trying to figure out how do you get in, and unless you had really good insurance, you couldn't get in. The vaccine came in to be equalized, but still the acceptance hasn't been equal because there's all that, decades and history of mistrust. So having this conversation has been key. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine, when it came out, we were hearing from members of the community saying, I want the one shot. I want the one shot. So we went over with the one shot, the single shot. That was mostly that. But when we started hearing, we want the Pfizer vaccine, we'll go with the Pfizer vaccine. It was more about what are we hearing through listening sessions? What is it that people wanted? This event that we did last Sunday at Wheels, we had the J&J vaccine for those people who wanted one shot and done. And we had the Pfizer vaccine because we wanted kids and whole families to have access to one vaccine that's already approved for 12 and older.
Dr. Viviana, can you say more about who we are? Because they don't know who you are. So I met you through forums just like this, like really trying to provide clear information to people. And you say historically marginalized populations like, oh, that's just us. No, that is a group of folks who have been, this game is not new to them. And I don't mean game in that way. I mean, folks have been on the front lines pushing health equity in their communities for decades. Yeah. And so these are the people who mobilized as part of HMP, the historically marginalized population, who are ringing the alarm saying, if it's about to be here, it needs to be here, right? Yeah. And so you said it like, hey, I go to Chuck E. Cheese. No, ma'am. Like, no, ma'am. I've been on webinars with you, and you're the person that people say when they say like, well, we need to increase access to this, and we're going to do it through education. I told you this on the phone the other day. You said, we don't increase access by just educating people. We increase access by holding institutions accountable, right? It's a combination of things. And that's why I respect you, because you show up to tables and you speak your truth. And I said that to you so that I did not ever forget. Now I'm saying it publicly. And Bob, you already know, yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
So his point is valid, and she just cleared that up, at least for me. Do you have anything else to add for people who are
I totally echo everything that she's saying, and I'm just gonna be like kind of hood for a second. When we look on social media, I'm sure there are many people in your chat who are young, who look at social media and they see when the Shade Room reports, oh, this particular company is making their, they are doing something with trying to increase Black people getting the vaccine, and people are like, oh, well, why are they trying to get us to get it? Well, let me just explain to you exactly why there is such a push amongst Black and brown people. And I'll speak particularly to Black people, and I'm sure Dr. Viviana would agree with this. For many reasons that are multifactorial or multiple factors, Black people have had decreased access to healthcare and have been more likely to have chronically unmanaged diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes, uncontrolled, sleep apnea, all these, heart disease, obesity, et cetera, which already increase our morbidity or our sicknesses and our mortality, which is the likelihood that we're going to die from those things. So then you sprinkle on top of that a virus that exploits all of those problems, and you have a recipe of more Black people and more brown people dropping dead from it. So the reason why our communities are being targeted to get this vaccine is because we are the most vulnerable population and the most likely to be affected by this. So that is why you see all these campaigns and these pushes from people coming into our communities to try to tell us this, because just like Dr. Viviana sees patients who have uncontrolled diabetes in her office, and she counsels these people on the importance of blood sugar management and tries to tell them all the things that are going to happen to them if they don't do it, and they don't do it. And then grandma has to get her leg cut off. And then grandma has to go get an arterial bypass. And then grandma's blind. And then we wonder how that happened when Dr. Viviana told her at the beginning. Ma'am, you should. Go ahead.
That goes back to like systems and structures and like what's around them to keep, man, we could, okay, my team time check is 7:05. Please go ahead, Dr.
That was a mic drop. That was wonderful and it's so real. There is also another issue. When the vaccines became available, who went to get vaccinated? White, rich,
yes,
able to find their way into the system.
I was going to say, can we correct that? Who cut the lines? Who was cutting lines?
Exactly. Who got it? So just remember that when we started seeing the numbers and we started looking by race and ethnicity, we were like, holy that, right? It's like only 2% of Latinos, only 2% of Black people were vaccinated. 98% of the vaccines went to white people. Yep. What's wrong with this picture? So there was the issue of saying, wait a second, our community needs access to that vaccine too. Yes. Where do we go? Where do they go? How do they get there? Oh, it's not in the neighborhoods where our community lives. It's only sitting in the richer neighborhoods. Okay, let's move it to where the community lives, where our community has an easier access to it. And then if you add language barriers, another big layer of barriers too, right? I hablo español, no sé a dónde ir, toda la información es en inglés. All the information was in English. So that was part of this HMP work, saying, wait a second, where is it not available? Who hasn't gone to it? And then the Secretary Cohen did something very, very intelligent together with our government and said, if you are a vaccine provider, you have to show me that you're making extra efforts to create an equitable distribution of the vaccine. She didn't just let people say, oh, you can have 3,000 more. No, you're going to show me that your 3,000 are going to be going to proportionate layers of people within your county. If your county is 30% Black, 30% of the vaccines should be going to Black people. If it is 20% Latino, needs to go to Latino. If it's 5%, so they were looking at that. And this is where we started hearing things that you never heard before. Oh, they want us to have a vaccine too. But it is so surprising because there was never an equity metric put behind a health service delivery that it has been so surprising.
Wow. Wow. Someone just sent me a message on my phone. You would think you two knew each other. Like they were just like these two experts. Like, oh my gosh, we have about 10 more minutes and I do want to get to some comments here in the chat. For folks who want to look at, again, this is the space to help you get the information you need. So it looks like the chat for VAERS is in the chat for folks. And let's see. Oh my gosh, there's so much here. Okay. Someone wants clarity, like, wait, COVID was here before the pandemic? Can you say more? Well, coronavirus. Can you say more about coronavirus? Because we did see on social media people turning Lysol bottles around like, it's a conspiracy. How is this a new virus? But Lysol can kill, because coronavirus is not. Can you please just explain to people that coronavirus has been here before the pandemic?
There are multiple, let's talk about mild viruses and bad viruses. Coronavirus has a collection of mild type of viruses that are just there, that give us a runny nose, a cough, the things that we see on a regular basis. When we test people, we see mild viruses all along. The problem is when the coronavirus, like SARS-CoV-2, it has its own name, it develops certain ways of being much more aggressive, like that spike protein that is very particular to this kind of coronavirus. You might have heard, just to think of another example of a virus that has benign and bad ones, the HPV virus, right? Yeah. There is the benign HPV virus that causes common warts. It is showy, it shows warts, and it ain't gonna kill you. It just looks nasty. There is the bad kind, the HPV high risk, 16, 18, and a few other variants that are nasty and cause cervical cancer in women, esophageal, oral cancer in males and women. So that is why we have a vaccine for that one. The HPV vaccine came to protect people from the bad kind of the HPV virus. The coronavirus vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine has come to protect people from this bad kind of coronavirus. We don't have a vaccine for the other mild kinds because we don't need one for those.
That's the best analogy I've had.
That was
HPV.
good.
I guess because I'm a woman, HPV, the virus for that's our cervix, right? And there's some that are benign, but there's some that cause cervical cancer. And so there are coronaviruses that are benign. And then we just got this monster here. And so when people turn around the Lysol bottle and say, how have we had Lysol for 30 years and it's killing coronavirus and it's new? It's because there are benign coronaviruses that have been here, that Lysol.
Dr. Dr. Bobby. Yeah, you're Dr. Bobby too. Yeah,
double B squared.
Dr. Bobby, that's a whole different thing. I think that it's important to differentiate questioning for the sake of clarification and information. And then there are just people that you're just not going to reach. I think, this platform is designed for those people who are questioning for the sake of clarity. We are not here to try to force anything down anybody's throat, but it's important because you see we live in a meme culture. We live in a meme culture. We live in a Facebook show, a Facebook, Instagram, these sorts of things, shade room posts, headline driven culture where we'll read the headline. The headline's the article, but you didn't click the article and actually read what was in the article to see that there was actually an explanation for what happened. And so your example about turning around the bottle only creates chaos because it doesn't give clarification. We want clarification.
That drove me crazy. And I got to a point of exhaustion. And that was honestly part of the reason. It's just like, let's just create a space for people to come because we were tired trying to keep up with all the misinformation. And it's not our job to come out here and try to save the world, but it was just like, really, the Lysol bottle? And you got tens of thousands of views. So thank you for that. There's a question that says, if someone in your home experiences side effects after receiving the vaccination, like a cough, fever, etc., can an unvaccinated member get sick? Okay.
No, those are, sorry, Bobby, go ahead.
Dr. Viviani, you go ahead.
So those are symptoms that
are. Sure y'all don't know each other. Wait a minute. No.
We're gonna have to go to dinner next time I'm in.
So those side effects of the vaccine are your immune system activating. So it's getting ready, it's fighting, it got the information that it was injected in the muscle, and it is starting to create the response that is going to be necessary for the day that you encounter the virus. So your immune system may react with a fever, or, just feeling fatigued, tired, etc. That is your body reacting, knowing it's like, okay, something is new here. I'm gonna need to start figuring out how to create more antibodies to fight it. Now, I would also caution, if you have a cough, then maybe you need to get a coronavirus test, because you might have been what's the word I'm trying to say? You might have gotten it before that, and you were not aware.
Mm-hmm. Can you say that again for the folks who, oh my gosh, this headline, so-and-so got the vaccine and they tested positive a few days later. Can you please explain how that happened? And you just talked about exposure. So can you say more about that?
So, it's exactly what Dr. Viviana just said. So you'll see the headline, like you just said, person got, COVID-19 after the first, shot. So, immunity doesn't happen for, with the exception of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, doesn't have to happen until at least 2 weeks post the second dose of the vaccine. Full efficacy doesn't happen. So if you're exposed to COVID within the sort of peri-injection period, like around the time that you got your first injection, there's a short latency period before you would show symptoms of the coronavirus. So you can absolutely become infected from being exposed prior to getting your first shot. And that doesn't mean that it happened because of the vaccine. Again, going back to our causality, right? There are multiple reasons why that could happen. So, again, all of those sort of headlines and things that you see are really designed to be divisive and to not provide people with a very clear, clarifying message. And that's not what, that's not going to help the problem that we're in right now. We're going to keep these masks on forever with that kind of messaging.
I've tried to explain that to people. I was like, we don't have a robust COVID-19 testing system across this country like you're tested all the time. So it's quite possible that you might have been positive and not had any symptoms at all. You went and got the vaccine and then you became symptomatic. You went and got a test. But yeah, those headlines just drive me up the wall. It's 7:15, y'all. We're supposed to be wrapping up. We have one more question. I think this one is worth taking. People are asking about boosters, and I think that's closely tied with these variants going wild, but would love to hear from the doctors. Tell us about boosters. Will we need them? Will we not? Is this a part of the crystal ball you were talking about or not? Tell us about the boosters.
I mean, from everything that I've read, it appears that we'll probably be heading in that direction. Per the latest information I could find from Pfizer, they were on a call with their shareholders as of today. It hasn't been published yet, but they've found that there's been with a booster, there's multifold increase in efficacy with the vaccine. So particularly with the Pfizer vaccine, I think what I've read, they have a group between 18 and 50 or somewhere around that had somewhere around a 4 or 5 fold increase in antibodies against the variant, and actually older people based on whatever their metrics were. Because again, none of this has been released to the public. They had an even higher, more robust immune response, so more antibodies against the Delta variant. So I think that we'll probably end up going down that road. Especially if the larger majority of people continue to go unvaccinated and infection and positivity rates continue to increase.
And when you say antibodies, that's what your body creates to fight the virus.
To fight the virus, yes. Thank you for saying that, because sometimes we get caught up.
I'm on a 5-year-old. I do this translational stuff. Even with my students, I'm just like, talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old. Don't believe the hype. Just talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old. Yeah. Anything else to add, Dr. Viviana? Or
I'm pretty certain that we're going to need one, just like we do for a lot of other vaccines. The tetanus shot, we get every 10 years. The measles, mumps, and rubella, we get it at 1 year of age. We get it again at 5. We often have to get it again as adults. Hepatitis B, I needed 4 shots to finally develop antibodies. It depends on each person, but we are seeing the studies showing us that. I can't wait. I want to be ready. The way we're seeing this wave, I think in October, we're going to have a lot of cases. We are, and as soon as they say you need a booster, I'm going to be ready. There's my deltoid. I'm ready for it.
Brian, what month did I tell you it was about to get ugly? What'd I tell you?
Said that, yeah.
October.
So we need to work together so that we don't let it get ugly.
Man.
The way to not let it get ugly is to get vaccinated and to protect each other, because by vaccinating, we are protecting each other. And if you're going into a big place where there's lots of people, you put your mask on because you don't know who's in there, potentially passing that virus around.
This is a side thing. We met for lunch earlier this week. I don't do heat. I don't go outside for anything, but because I'm not going indoors, we met outside. Brian was the only one. He was just like, do. And, I have my 2 masks in my purse and I'm sweating, but it's because for me, my comfort is just not to be indoors and I keep my mask on. One more question. And then folks, we're going to drop in the chat a survey for this session. We want to know, number 1, what your thoughts were about the session. And number 2, what additional questions you have, because we have another session coming up next month. How do people talk to their providers? Now you're talking to us like Bobby, I just said to you, talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old. How do people, well, everyone doesn't have a primary care provider, but whomever they interface with in the medical arena or a community health worker, do they ask about all the side effects? Like, what are the things that people need to be able to communicate or think about as part of their decision-making or getting tested as they kind of navigate through the decision?
I'll let Dr. Viviana start since she's a primary care physician.
I am asked a lot about these questions. I have diabetes. Should I get a shot? especially so, right? Like Bobby was saying earlier, if you have chronic medical conditions, you're more likely, if you get sick with the coronavirus, you're more likely to end up worse, right? I have lots of moms that ask me about their teenagers. Should they get them vaccinated? I talk to teenagers about vaccination. I think if you have, it's always so important to talk to your trusted primary care provider, and you may or may not have somebody, but just go with the questions and ask for respect in answers, right? If someone's going, no, like, wait, I want to have a dialogue. Can you tell me this? I am very interested in why I should or should not get the vaccine. Can we talk?
I love that. That's like my qualitative hat. I always start things with like, tell me more about. So tell me more about is one of the things. Bobby, you know me.
Oh yeah.
21 questions, but you want to add?
You know, I absolutely agree with her. I think that another key and another you know, pounding message I wanted to get across on this platform was, you know, even if you don't have a primary care physician, be very understanding about where you're getting your information from. I keep going back to social media because it is pervasive. It is where we get most of our news. We don't even hardly have newspapers anymore because everybody's getting their information online, right? So I want you to be very cognizant about where you are getting your information. If it's not from a credible source, if it's not from the CDC, if it's not from the New England Journal of Medicine, if it's not from the World Health Organization, if it's not from a trusted source of news, think twice before you press the share button, because you pressing it will give it to all of your network, who will give it to all their network. And then all of a sudden we have a massive amount of misinformation and more people less likely to do something that could help them. And ultimately the level of Black and brown people will continue to suffer and more people will continue to get sick. So really hone in on where you're getting your news, where you're getting your information about these things. And again, all of the information regarding the vaccine, regarding the potential choices you can make are readily available.
Can I add, and tell me if this is okay to add as the physicians, can you also do what makes you comfortable? So I know recommendations were given to take off your mask, but I don't do free breath on a regular day. And I've just felt more comfortable continuing to wear my mask. And I will continue to do so until I see the word herd immunity, or until I can go everywhere with my mask off. My personal decision is just to keep it on. That's just me, or sit outside in the blistering heat with Brian eating lunch. Like, is it okay if you are more comfortable? And it is a proven preventive method or measure, even though, you know, someone might say, oh, it's cool. The way that my spirit is set up, say, yes, is that okay? Because the science has shown from the beginning that
I think that we've all in some ways developed some level of PTSD from all of the things that have gone on over the last year. So a lot of people have developed a dependence on their mask, and we clearly know based on the data that masks work. And whether you're vaccinated or not, now with the CDC saying that we should all be wearing masks regardless of vaccination or not, especially in 2/3 of America who have increased rates of COVID, you know, with the variant that's going on right now. I would say absolutely wearing a mask is something that people should be doing, especially based on the data that we have right now. So I'm a data-driven person. So if based on the information, based on the bouncing ball that we talked about earlier, is indicating that we should be wearing masks, then we should be wearing masks, period, point blank, hard stop.
I have my whole little fashion line. I was like, I'll be till 2022. You'll see my teeth on the Zooms. That's the only time you see my teeth. Dr. Viviana, you want to add? We have 5 more minutes. This has been amazing.
When the positive rates were low, I was comfortable without a mask among friends who are vaccinated. You know, I went to restaurants. I've been, even, you know, last week I was out in a restaurant outside, and I was paying attention. But now we're starting to go back to 7%, 9%, 10% positive. Now, we need to go back to outside. We need to make sure that we really know who are the people around us. Are they vaccinated or not?
I feel like both of you have dropped the mic several times, but that is the formal last thing. I feel like I don't even know what the mic. Public information for Bob. I don't even know. Even know. We normally exit out on PowerPoint slides, but I'm going to leave the last few moments for you to speak your piece. What's on the last few PowerPoint slides, folks, are please complete the evaluation surveys. Most importantly, we'd love to know how this session went, but what additional questions do you have? This pandemic is continuing to evolve, and we can continue to bring questions to our experts, just like we kicked this off talking about the Delta variant. That wasn't a huge issue like a few months ago. The other thing is, this is the third session of 4 that was brought to you by our partners at Ride United NC. We talked about structures and systems and how they leave neighborhoods limited in their access to even basic care. Part of them believing in these health literacy sessions was kicking off this campaign and also allowing people, if they choose to get vaccinated, an opportunity for transportation support to and from their vaccine appointments. So we'll put that link in the chat. Huge thank you to Ride United. And I haven't stuttered this whole time. I'm excited. Ride United NC, which is a partnership with United Way, Lyft, Blue Cross Blue Shield North Carolina, Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation, North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, North Carolina Department of Transportation, Duke Energy, Bank of America. I hope those are everybody on the slide. Our next drop-in is August 25th. These are every 4th Wednesday of the month, but we have a ton of user-driven content. When I say user-driven, that means you. So make sure you're on our mailing list, because for the next 6 months, we're going to keep it right. Keep it right was the hashtag for this. We're going to keep pushing out ways for you to navigate this pandemic safely. We know folks are out, they're mobile, but really understanding, as I said earlier, what you out there kind of juggling with. And we might have some, I'm a little competitive. I'm the baby girl. I'm older brothers. We might have some competitions along the way. So stay connected. Oh, I think that's everything without seeing the slides. Drop the mic. Anything else you want to add? We got 3 minutes.
All right. So, I will say that now more than ever, it's really important for us to take care of ourselves. We've spent a lot of time talking about the evidence and the reasons why you may want to consider getting a COVID-19 vaccine. But I think it's equally as important to be concerned about your mind, your body, and your spirit. So, in addition to deciding whether or not you need to get the vaccine, I understand very clearly that depression, that anxiety, post-traumatic stress, all of these things have been pervasive during this time. We've all been isolated. Make sure that you have support. Make sure that you have people in your life that you can lean on when you are scared, when you are concerned, people who you can bounce the idea of potentially getting a vaccine off from, and go get a primary care doctor like Dr. Viviana. Mic drop.
I'm coming to the lunch when you come down to North Carolina with my mask on, but okay, Dr. Viviana.
Let's ride a wave of good health, not of bad health. The only way to get out of this one is to be responsible with ourselves, our community, listen to the data, listen to the information that comes from really the scientists who are really working their butts day in and day out to get us informed, to get us vaccines that work and treatments that work. So instead of letting this rise with viruses, let's get it rise with vaccines and healthy people.
And rise with truth. Truth. Find your truth and make your decisions based on truth. Our guest, Mr. Dawson, if you want the final word, is yours. You're good.
I'm becoming a better radio personality today. I know what to talk about my listeners. Thank you, guys.
I appreciate y'all. Folks, stay connected. Sign up for the next drop-in hours. Make sure you're connected to our community. We got competitions coming left and right. So thank you so much. Thank you, team. Awesome job. We'll see you in August.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Let me stop the